Yo, what's up everyone? This is Rudy from Drinks in a Movie Podcast, and today I get the privilege of breaking the seal on the brand new Honey Cask expression from Nelson Bros. This came out just a few weeks ago, so I finally got to check out the Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery. It is very awesome, super beautiful. We got to go back, my friend Chris and I, and actually do a tour of the distillery. So shout out to Zach, who was our tour guide. It's super awesome. They even have some of the original bottles like in cases and everything, which is super cool. And then you get to see how their, Tennessee whiskey is made. It's a really cool experience. The gift shop is amazing. The bar is nice and long. You got a lot of options. So if you ever get to go to Nashville, Tennessee, definitely check out the Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery. So I was very fortunate to be gifted this bottle of the new Honey Cask. This came out a week after we had first gotten there. And then luckily we were able to come back, do the tour as I mentioned, and they gifted me this bottle. So shout out to Dara, Stephanie, Becky, everybody who made it possible. They've really kind of helped me out, setting me up with the tour and all that. I'm really excited for this new Honey Cask. This one is coming in at 112.4 proof. I'll probably be covering this again at some point with like a movie. Once it's had some airtime. But yeah, they're just really great people. Again, thank you guys so much for showing me a lot of love with the bottles and everything and the merch. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to be supported by you guys, and I love everything you do. So yeah, anyway, here we go. Let's dig into this one. This is the 2024 Nelson Bros Honey Cask. Funny, on this one, that honey aroma isn't very strong on the nose. Like, it wouldn't be obvious to me that that's what it is. It has, on the nose, I get more of like the oak influence. It reminds me of like an older bourbon, which is nice. But yeah, man, just sweet oak. It really reminds me of like an older, like when I drink the Hardin's Creeks or the Knob Creek 15s and 18s, like that kind of, rich oaky aroma, which I really like. The other thing, if you're not familiar with this one, is, they take their bourbon, which is a high rye mash bill, which I like. You get that extra bit of spice to kind of balance out the sweetness. So they take that bourbon and they just finish it in a barrel that I think it was, they did the bourbon in there first, and then they soak it in honey from a company that they're in cahoots with called True Bee. So then they kind of coat it with honey, then they throw the bourbon back in the barrel, and then they age it for, I'm not sure how long. I don't remember reading that on the website. It might be in the episode I did with Becky, but they age it for however many months in the barrel that's coated in the honey, so it can get into the wood and pick up some of those honey characteristics. So it's important to note that this is not a flavored whiskey where they're just adding color and flavoring and a bunch of sugar to make it some kind of flavor. This is a bourbon that was finished in a honey cask. There is a pretty important distinction there. Yeah, so still now I'm getting a little bit of the honey aroma, but it's not too strong. It's just a lot of sweet oak. Like, man, very good. I just live in that nose. Anyway, here we go. Cheers. That's one thing I learned on that tour. I do a lot of tastings, obviously, and I've talked to a lot of professionals about tasting. But one thing our tour guy, Zach, told us about was when you take your initial sip to do like a really strong exhale, and it helps so much to bring out some of the flavors throughout the entire palate. Like even right now, man, it's a roller coaster, but let me go in for the second sip. I can tell you first sip's really good. Let me just go in again. Now definitely the honey scent is coming out strong. Yeah, that is really stellar. That's a pretty different vibe from what I remember of the other Honey Cask, the 107.2 proof, which Chris and I actually did a blind tasting with all the whiskeys I have of theirs, and I think we're gonna need to do a new one with the new additions that I got. Man, 112 proof, but it doesn't come in that hot at all. It's like, I know people don't like this word, but it is like nice and smooth. And you do get that whiskey. I don't even want to say burn or like heat. You get some of that spice, but it's just so nice the way it lights up the tongue. It's definitely more oak forward. Like it feels like an aged older whiskey. When I did that exhale, that's when I started getting that kind of honey flavor coating throughout my whole palate. Yeah, let me go in for another sip here. Yeah, it's darker and richer for sure. More of the oak coming through, like I said. Yeah, maybe a little more of like a spice. I feel like the finish doesn't last too long though. Like it's already kind of dissipating like the more I drink it, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I'm holding this. I want to compare it to the previous version. So I've got my other Nelson Bros Glencairn here. So let me pour just a little taster of the 107 proof Honey Cask expression. So this one already smells sweeter. This one's really good. This one definitely has more of that honey sweetness coming through, but it's not too much. What I love about what they do and what makes this great is like the sweetness isn't overbearing. I feel like it would be super easy to just make like an ultra sweet bourbon that almost feels like it's for people that don't like bourbon. They just want something flavored and super sweet and sugary. And it's not that. And I've always admired that about the 107 proof honey cask. It retains the bourbon qualities, it retains the spice with like that hint of that honey flavor. And it feels very buttery on the palate too, which I like, you know, like a good, if you have waffles and the butter is kind of melted, that like texture, it like has that kind of feel, which I really, really love. God, and the nose is so good. The nose is so damn good. I think the 107 proof does a lot to like help it out too from not being too sweet. You know, if they did like a 90 proof version of this, I don't think it would hit the same. But yeah, back to the new version. Yeah, now as we've gone on, I feel like I'm starting to get the sense of that high rye bourbon in here. I was warming up my palate on Nelson Bros Classic prior to this. I mean, I like to get acclimated within the same family, so I have a point of reference, and I'm starting to like get the sense of that, like their reserve bourbon, you know, those kind of aromas, their classic bourbon as well, with that honey and that sweet oak. Yeah, I love it. They're both great. I don't even know if they have any more of the 107 proofs lingering. If they do, try and get yourself one. They are quite different, but they're both very, very good. This one, I feel, and it's not to knock the previous expression, but just a little more oak driven. You know, maybe a hint bitterness or like spiciness, but it's good. It comes across like a richer, more mature version, which is excellent. It's quite different. I don't get that same buttery kind of texture. The honey flavor is more subdued in the background, but I love that I still have that. I can still get a sense of those flavors, especially like on the back palate, but with the bourbon coming off again more mature and almost more aged, like I mentioned before. So this is an absolute hitter. Both of them are great. I'm very grateful that, you know, they sent me the original one too. So thank you guys again. I can't thank you guys enough for all your love and support. I hope everybody gets to try these. If you ever get a chance, definitely do so. If you haven't tried any Nelson Brothers products yet, then highly recommend the Classic, the Reserve, the Tennessee Whiskey, this is their wheated bourbon, are all easily available. Same with their new rye. Check them out if you haven't. Of that lineup, the Reserve is definitely my favorite. Yeah, I mean, I can just sit here and hype it all night. This is a stellar expression. Try it if you can. It's amazing. That honeyness coming in on the back palate. Lots of sweet oak. Still balanced with some spice. Very mature. I love it. It's a hitter, and I'm thankful to have it. And I got to think of what movie to pair it with pretty soon. I'd be interested to see how it opens up once I get below the shoulder. So yeah, stay tuned. At some point, I'll think of a movie to pair this with, and we'll do it on the podcast. And maybe I'll do another blind tasting with some of these new expressions I've got my hands on during my trip. So anyway, that's a wrap on this one. Cheers.